Good morning from me here at Ghettofabulous Kings of War, and today we're going to talk about the March Hare tournament. Took place last month in March, and I was kind of using it as an Adepticon test run for a new army. 1995 points, 3 games. Here we go. I was trying to go for a mobile goblin army list. Normally I don't like the more expensive elite armies, at least not in Kings of War. I like the more slogging, slow infantry, but I'm tired of... It seems like a lot of the enemies are going to more fast, mobile, killy units, and I'm tired of being the one who loses lots of things, so I want to try something different. This was kind of brainstorming at the last minute, so I hadn't play tested this army, so I kind of accepted, look, this is something new and different. I'm not going to win the tournament. I'm just going to go with it, have fun, try some things out, learn some stuff, which is different. Normally you're going to a tournament, really focus on winning. I mean, not to be a jerk or anything, obviously, but your goal is to win every game. You've tested it, and you're showing up with your best. In this case, I almost viewed it like an extended hobby weekend, just at your local game store, just play a couple extra games. So I had a bunch of new units I was trying out. I hadn't finished them, and I almost didn't bring them to paint. I didn't bring them because they weren't painted and finished. And I thought, look, I'm not going to win all the games, so I'm not... the paint scores and stuff aren't as important. I'm just trying this out, and if it works, I do well, or I like it, I'll finish it up for Adepticon. The game is 1995 points, but the tournament is a special thing about giants. You get a free giant in the list, and it's not the same stat line as like the regular goblin giant. It's close, but it's not quite as good. So the army I took was... I kind of put it in a visual form here, so I can kind of talk through the thought process. So the real core is the voracious maw pack formation, which you never see. But again, I'm trying to go for something mobile and killy, and this is about as good as goblins will get with that. So the maw pack formation removes yellow belly and gives them all vicious, which, with Thunder's 1, against a lot of units, they can do some damage. There's only 14 attacks hitting on 4s for the regiments, and 28 attacks hitting on 4s for the horde. But if they work together, maybe. I don't know, that was a thought process. So this one has the skull pull, only 5 points, and gives brutal. And if I'm trying to kill stuff, that 1 extra point of damage-ish on the rolls will be handy. Flaming oil, again, a cheap upgrade to get a few wounds in. And then these guys are so huge, they have to kind of take the caterpillar. And then they're supported, they wouldn't be lined up and deployed like this, but they're supported by a regiment of sniffs, so I can go around and put some wounds on things. Chariot horde with the elven wines, they have nimble. So these guys can move and shoot. They can get weird charges off because they're height 3. And 16 attacks with Thunderous 2. Again, hitting on 4s. But everything here hits moderately hard. And then if you can combine them right, it might be enough to take out even tough units. The King on a Chariot. He has the Healing Brew just in case he gets planked a few times. Again, 7 attacks. Can move and shoot. Or it can charge with Thunderous 2. And then the Flagot on a Fleabag with the Loot of Insatiable Darkness, normally trying to Bane Chant this horde. And suddenly, now you've got 28 attacks with Thunderous 2 and Vicious. Suddenly, that can put a lot of wounds on something. Down here, third row here, 2 Mincers, because Mincers are cheap and great. 2 Blasters. Now you can take those as part of the regular army. And this works out well because now when the opponent is deploying, they see a fast mobile army, a lot of nimble. This stuff can go anywhere. So do they want to spread out so I can focus somewhere? Or do they want to bunch up and stay tight? Then I can't pick them apart, but then I can run blasters up and they're packed together and they get nuked. Grogger. All right, so Another thing I don't normally take are special characters. Um, he's 95 points, which isn't super expensive. Okay, for most players, it's not expensive at all. But for me, I don't like spending a lot of points on things. Okay, so he's inspiring, regenerating 3. I think he has 5 attacks with ranged and melee, both hitting on 4s. So that's, he's got a little bit of a threat. But most importantly, once a turn, if you fail a yellow belly check, he allows you to reroll it. The king and the chariot both have yellow belly, and I had been adding some of these components into my regular goblin list, and every once in a while you're trying to do an attack, and you fail this yellow belly check, and everything falls apart. You're setting up these combo charges. Instead, the king charges in by himself, the chariot stand back. It doesn't work. So you have, if you're going to be doing stuff like this, you have to be reliable with your charges. So I ponied up a few extra points to get Grogger, and that helped quite a bit. The final row here, 2 wizards, both with weakness. These units, since they're fast and mobile, are not super tough. So I thought, okay, weakness will allow me to survive counterattacks better, and if the enemy has shooting, especially static shooting, like a horde of elven archers or something, if I just put weakness on them, that'll shut them down, or at least significantly reduce their damage to my guys, my fragile guys. This guy's Hex, which I have tough times with undead armies. And every time I see them, it's like, oh, there's not a lot of people there. It's a small little army. I should be able to roll these guys. But Surge and all the heal they can put out. But suddenly you put Hex on something, and some of those casters with Surge 10 suddenly are very hesitant to put out those big surges, and it changes their gameplay quite a bit. It's only 10 points. Obviously, it doesn't affect a lot of other armies, but for the few armies it does affect, it's very handy. 2 rabble regiments, either chaff to hold things up, cheap objective holders. This one has a scrying gem. So not only am I very fast and mobile on my deployment, or in gameplay, but my opponent has to deploy a lot more of his stuff first. And because it's a lower point value, 1995, that just makes the gem even more powerful because my opponent will probably have fewer units. So I like this quite a bit actually on this list. It's a little pricey, but it worked out for me. And a Maw Beast Regiment. You'll notice I don't have any troops of anything. First of all, rabble. I mean, the rabble won't come in it, but I don't know. Just from a cost efficiency perspective, you get a lot more for your points out of the larger units. So I don't normally take the small ones, especially because these guys are already pretty fragile at defense 3. And if you get them in troops, defense 3, I think their nerves becomes 9/11. They just get shot off. So that's the thought process. Deploy heavy on one side. Maybe the first couple drops in the middle are quick, fast things like the Sniffs or one of the regiments, the Maw Beast pack, even because they're nimble. Then the opponent with the scrying gem, and then seeing a couple of my drops. What does he do? Normally, they kind of drop things all over the place, kind of spread out, because they don't want to show their hand. But I can keep dropping nimble things, or a mincer here, or a blaster. I usually kind of wait for the blasters. A mincer over here. And by the time they've committed, I can deploy very heavy with some of my heavier hitters on one flank. Then the mincers do some damage and hold up the enemy as I'm coming around the flank. And then the blasters are coming in towards the middle of the enemy's army as well. First game was on the Blood Lava red board. Impassable. Height 6, height 4, whatever it happened to be. Couple hills. These spiky things we were calling forests. There's a couple spiky ones over here. Maybe we called these forests, and these are just flat. I don't remember exactly how we played it, but you can see there's difficult terrain, a couple hills. Here's my opponent's army. He was goblins as well, and he went all out on the giant theme. The scenario with these 3 tokens along the center line. I don't remember the name of the scenario. Loot or something. I don't know. You know it. You love it. 3 tokens, center line, grab them, and try to get away. So my opponent's list, a Colossal Giant, Horde of Trolls, an allied-in Frost Giant, a War Trombone, a Horde of Rabble, another Colossal Giant, another War Trombone. This is the tournament giant. He had like a 12-inch range attack throwing a rock, so he has one that's throwing a rock for that. That rock throwing thing almost never came in because it was 12 inches, and I think it was speed 6. So most of the time he was just charging if he was close enough. So you got the 2 Rabbles here, a regular giant, another regular giant. There's some kind of, I don't know if it's a flag get or some kind of inspiring character back here, and I think there's an inspiring guy. Again, maybe a wizard, because he had at least one wizard over here. And then on the far side, this is a allied-in warband regiment from the Varangur, which let him get this Frost Giant. So my thoughts initially were, when I saw the army, I thought this could be really bad, because he could deploy pretty packed in and pretty tight, and maybe sacrifice something early to try to stop my blasters. But if I deploy kind of spread out at first, if he deploys spread out, I think I would have a very good chance against this list. And thankfully, as you can kind of see, he didn't deploy a huge amount because this was in the center of the table, but it was spread out enough that I had something to work with, I thought. My deployment, this is focusing on the left side, obviously, but you can see you got Regiment of Riders, the Horde of Riders, the Loot inspiring guy, and the Chariots. So you can see this is a fast, mobile, hitty part over here. And for his side, he's got Colossal Giant, Frost Giant, and Trolls. So I don't know if I can win that or not, but my intent is to grab this token and this other far token by either killing or grabbing it and running while sacrificing units. And then I'll let him have the center one. That's where the bulk of his people are anyway. If he wants to move in there with a bunch of stuff and try to grab it, that's fine. I'll take 2. He can take 1. And I should be okay with that. In the center, I've got a regiment of Rabble. These are the Fleabag Sniffs and the regiment of Maul Beasts. So while these fast, mobile units can move over here and maybe kill some stuff, these cheaper, smaller units can move over as well. They can grab it, or they can be sacrificed. If one of these faster units grabs it, they can sacrifice to slow things up, while these guys can grab it and run away. On the right flank, both my Mincers, Grogger, my Giant, these are my 2 Blasters here, the King on the Chariot, the other group of Fleabag Riders, and another regiment. So, the King, nimble and fast enough, and what he's got is a Rabble regiment, 2 regular giants, and this warband. So my thought process is, okay, the King can dart over here, grab this objective. Between the Mincers and the Giant, we can easily kill this warband, and then we can fight it out with these 3, while the King has a token running away. And whether I win or lose against killing these guys, I'll hold them up enough that the King can get away. The 2 Blasters can go into the heart of his army and blow up whatever I need to blow up. And as you can see, I went first. I go up, I grab the token. Mincers are coming up. Everything's looking good. The Sniffs, as you can see, actually moved over to the right here. He made it, I'll call it a bit of a deployment error. You can see with his big horde of rabble here, they can't just continue to advance to get this token. They're just too far over. So he's going to have to either pivot them or sidestep them, but it's going to slow them down a bit from getting this objective. And on the left side, yeah, I think now the more I think about it, these on the little felt pieces must have been forest, and these must have been flat, which gives us better visibility, but I'm in it, so it doesn't really matter here. So you can see I'm setting up, got a nice little, how do you call that? I don't know, but set up in a curve here so I can flank and charge and get multi-charges off. And you can see from his measurement, he's thinking about just going for it, which is fine. If he wants to charge in there, that's great by me. Right side, I think this is probably the end of turn 2. Wipe out the warband group here. King's turned around, getting ready to run away. Grogger's pointing. I don't know why he's pointing over there. Giants are fighting each other. And you can see my explodey thing has moved up. I don't think he charged at this point. But maybe. We'll see. This guy, you can see he's got a couple wounds in the yellow die. That means he's wavered. That's one of the tricky parts on these. They're defense 5. I think they're maybe 9-11 nerve. It doesn't take a lot to, well, it doesn't take a lot to rout them, but it doesn't take a lot to waver them either with a couple shots. So they're a bit vulnerable to any kind of ranged attack. On the left here, I've charged and wiped out that troll horde. Again, I don't see exactly how I set it up because I'm trying to focus on the game, so I didn't take that many pictures. But I believe, looking at this, I probably charged with the regiment and the horde, and the horde of chariots. And I kept the horde of these guys back because I didn't need them, and they'll follow up with a charge against one of these giants. And while the chariots aren't great, they don't have great nerve, they're probably enough to take a punch from a giant, even a frost giant, a colossal one. So the thought process was they kill the trolls, they pick up the token. As long as they can survive a turn, next turn they can just drop the token. These guys here will pick it up and start running, and then I can sacrifice regiments and stuff to allow them to escape. This must have been the next turn, so probably turn 4. And I've got this one is not wavered anymore. You can see he's charged in. So this blaster is charged into this giant, and you can see here's the horde of rabble. So the horde of rabble, the giant, another giant. He has this other horde of rabble here, and then my horde of rabble is a bit further away. And then this one I took a picture of because he rolled maximum distance on his blast. So he hit my mincer, my giant, his other giant, rabble regiment, my rabble regiment, giant, maybe even his colossal giant. So these two blasters put out a huge amount of damage on my stuff and his. I didn't really care so much about my stuff getting hit. Again, it's there to die. It's just holding stuff up, but it was kind of funny. It worked out kind of how I'd hoped. It was more devastating. It hurt my stuff more than I'd hoped, but I was okay with that. Here's a better shot of this one as well. The 3 is number of wounds. I don't remember exactly what the distance of his blast was, but he hit quite a bit as well. Now, he's guaranteed to hit at least 2, right? I don't see a frost giant, so I'm not exactly sure what hit this, but we hit one of these giants, either frost or this one, and his inspiring was just out of range, and I rolled the 12 for nerve, so we punked whichever guy we hit right away, which is a big stroke of luck, because this side, with the 2 giants, grinding them down was not going to work too well. You can see my regiment of cavalry that was over here is gone, so that was a bit of help I needed, because trying to fight these giants was going to take a while, and if I hadn't got this stroke of luck, if it had been back and forth, I probably would have lost more. I don't know if I would have won or lost. I still would have held them up enough to let my cavalry here get, or my mob beast with the token get away, but this was helpful. Yeah, I think I must have charged him with this unit alone, and that was enough to kill him. Well, let's see. And then these sniffs, with everything going on, they never really had everything else was going on. I wanted to focus on these edges, so I kind of leaving the center alone for a while. So the sniffs never really had a good place to fit in this game. So they kept bouncing back and forth, shooting at whatever they could, but there's never really a good target for them. Although you can see now this rabble horde now has at least 3 dice worth of wounds on them. So they've taken quite a bit. And now I'm starting to think, I'm winning over here pretty handily, but those blasts going off, I might be able to grab this central token as well, if I can come up around here. With those guys so wounded, I could probably shoot them off the board pretty soon, and suddenly a lot of things open up for me. So you can see that little rabble regiment there got routed. His little giant over here is routed, and these guys are all very wounded now. And my king on chariot is running away with the loot. He shot with his wizard or something and did 1 wound on this horde or this regiment of fleabags and wavered them. So I was kind of counting on them to rush in and flank charge or hit one of these guys, but that's not going to happen. Grogger, I kind of forgot about a couple times, so like he's not up here inspiring these guys like he should be, which is unfortunate. Although everyone took so many wounds from those blasters, it probably didn't matter. And then the fight over here, these guys with the token, they're in danger a bit because they're only defense 3, and there's this blaster or a war trombone running around. So that's going to be the next target. But even if they get killed, then this regiment can pick it up. I mean, I have options. Redundancy, whichever you want to say. And here we go, just grinding stuff away and running. He kills my little regiment between a giant, well, mostly the giant and a few wounds from the regiment. That's going to happen. We kill the giant, and these guys charge and kill the war trombone. So now the path across the back here is pretty much open. And these guys have a free route just to run away with the token. And you can see my sniffs are running back now, and they've shot off that horde. And his giants are tied up back here fighting my last mincer. And these little schlubs here are just standing out in the open exposed. And we're coming around. He has 1 giant left going in, fighting here. He put, I believe, a independent character, someone trying to block this last token, but I ended up claiming it. And these guys are safe as well. So, overall, we'll say strong victory, whatever you want to say. I had all 3 objectives, and I don't think I added it up or anything. I don't have a note, but overall, you can tell it must have been pretty good attrition, just looking at what was left on the board. I've got several units. He's got a giant and a couple characters, so a good start, a very good start. Which means with pairings, I should be playing against someone else with a pretty strong win. So next game, I'm assuming, will be much more difficult. Here is the board. Most of the stuff is pretty clear. 2 buildings, impassable, whatever, obstacles, hills, which we called this one height 3, which is a little unusual, but okay. The bigger question was, what do you count this as? And I believe we ended up calling it height 2 difficult terrain. So a little something unusual. We don't, it's not a forest. Some things can see over it, but not everything. So it's a little different, but it's kind of fun to have something unusual. Let's see if I can. The mission scenario here is invade, I think. I'm trying to get into the opponent's side, which is funny because about halfway through, maybe towards the end of the game, we were talking about it. I thought I was hosed after deployment because I thought, this scenario is based off of unit, like points. I guess I was thinking the older version. I was thinking it was based off points. Like crap, he's got these 2 demon lord guys. So he's guaranteed a bunch of points to get into my half, and I don't have much of a chance on this one. I'm going to have to kill him, and I tried to, and I screwed up because I've got a few units over here by themselves, so he's going to be able to swarm them and wipe them out, and he doesn't have much on my side. And he was thinking I was brilliant and out-deployed him because it is based off of unit strength, and I have a crap load of unit strength over here. He does not have very much, and if we just push forward, he thought I had more than enough to win, so he was going to have to come over here and engage me, and I was way over here, and I was going to definitely win. I had a huge advantage, so we're both starting off thinking we're out-deployed in a problem place. So you can't see his army too well, but I'll try to walk you through what I can see here. So he has 2 troops of gargoyles on the very far edges. He has 2, this is abyssals, by the way, 2 flying demon lords, or whatever they're called. So the big flying monsters. Here's his free giant. In the middle here are two, like, they call abyssal riders, like they're heavy cavalry, and one of them is some kind of special upgrade legendary unit of abyssal riders. So, two heavy cavalry units, one which is even better, two regiments of lower abyssals, a horde of lower abyssals, and then like a spellcaster back here. And I think that's about it for the most part. As you can see, we'll go back, I think, actually, so you can see my list a little better. So I deployed these blasters in the middle, but it's not a great spot. They don't have a lot of shooting, but both of these flying demon lord things have lightning, so that's going to be more than enough to put these guys down. Grogger here is in the middle, inspiring them, and he works out pretty well for that because he's got a ranged attack, so he can kind of shoot while he's keeping these guys inspired. If one of them goes off and happens to hit him, he has regeneration 3, so it's not devastating. And if your own blaster injures you, you don't take the nerve check right away, so he'll get a chance to regenerate. So he's not bad on that. As part of my deployment, I had put a few units on the left here and gone heavy on the right, but I kind of was writing these guys off because with these flying monsters and things, I figured he'd just wipe them out right away. And you can see on the right, I stacked heavy. I thought, well, between the Chariot King, the Chariots, and the Sniffs, I'll probably get to shoot these gargoyles down because they're probably just going to run back and be chaff in the middle here. But wherever they go, I'll be able to move in, put some shots on them, and then roll up this flank and come across. But I figured I'm going to have to do a lot of fighting in the middle here, so I put my Pathfinder dudes in the back, figuring they'll get an opening at some point. So you can see, I think he got first turn, which is even worse because that's going to pin me in a little bit. Oh, he got like a inspiring character on a horseback here. So you can see both my blasters are wavered. Both took some wounds. His gargoyles over here, and this must be turn 2 or something, charge into my Mobby's pack. These guys are flying up, starting to put pressure on my... he's pushing up pretty aggressively on the left flank here and into the center. And I'm not pressing up as aggressively. I'm just kind of turning this corner to face him. He actually took those gargoyles that were back here and just flew them up right in my face, trying to chaff me up, I guess, jam me up and slow me down, which is fine. I just double charge with these two and kill them and move forward. And I'm setting up over here. This obstacle is going to be a problem because, I mean, the giant can ignore it in a charge, but with he's only speed 6, so with a 12-inch charge, actually getting over to this part is going to be hard. But you can see we're going to start turning around here. He has his regular cavalry here in the middle, but his like elite special cavalry, I believe, is coming around the back to help support this side. His gargoyles fail to kill my mob beasts, and the mob beasts actually wipe them out. I don't know where this blaster went. I don't remember how much the blaster did on this one. Probably not too much this game. I believe when we counterattacked, this may have come in as well, the mincer, and helped out with the gargoyles to finish them off. You can see... so these are the riders here, my Fleabag riders. They must have charged his cavalry, and I'm guessing this other blaster must have gone up and exploded and helped out with that, because they're not there anymore, and that's a pretty fair trade for me. And just advancing over here, you can see there's a few wounds on his other cavalry unit, with the king up here shooting. The chariots are on the hill, height 3, so you can see over all this. So they're shooting at the cavalry. The sniffs can shoot at things, so we can start putting some wounds out. Here you go. And you can see the wizards are tucked in here. So again, lightning probably. So he charges his one demon dude into my uninspired mob beast pack, and they put some wounds on, but he fails to kill them, which is not good for him. So I can counterattack. They may have been wavered, actually. But the more important thing is the mincer gets to flank charge and put 8 wounds on him. So that was helpful. My regiment of flea bags is gone. But then the horde charges in, and then he charges in with his other demon lord. And I think because this is becoming a larger engagement, I start charging him with more stuff as well. So this little regiment goes against his regiment. The giants and these riders go into the abyssal horde, lower abyssal horde. Everything else is moving forward except the sniffs. The chariots are back here, and the king still. So we're going to keep putting some shots on this elite rider unit, and then he's still going to be kind of stuck. If he wants to charge them in here, then he can get multi-charged from my stuff. Just trying to make it difficult for him. You can see here, I mean, these guys have speed 9, so I've got 18-inch charge, although they'll be hindered because of this obstacle. And there's a mincer here, so does he want to flank charge here? Does he want to charge the mincer? And yeah, it's a lot of stuff for him to process. And he probably got weakened, and you can see he's got, looks like 2 dice of wounds on him. The giant and the demon lord go into the horde here and waver them. You can see this demon lord has finished off the the Mobby's pack. Is now putting some wounds on my mincer. He's up to 13 wounds though, so he's not in great shape. Up at the top here, the elite cavalry unit is gone. You can see a regiment and my goblin king, so they must have charged in to finish him off. My regiment is gone. These lower abyssals are pretty wounded though. So again, kind of a slog out fest in the middle. Another picture. Oh, I see an objective token here. So I believe there's a secondary mission on this where certain units had tokens and you get bonus points for moving them across the central point or something. There were some bonus points. They were not primary. So as the game's progressing, I want to keep these guys engaged, but I want to start getting towards the top of the board, and I don't want to show my flank too much with these flyers and things. So the sniffs and the chariots, because they're nimble, kind of move towards his half and then turn around again to shoot. And they move up and shoot. We've taken out stuff in the middle here. So all he has left is this horde and this regiment of lower abyssals. And I've got the mincer, the king, and my regiment. Yeah, so he finally kills this mincer over here, and they end up killing my horde, of course. But between Grogger, my 2 wizards that are remaining with lightning, I could probably put a few wounds on this. And at 14 wounds, I don't have to put too many more on to really have a good chance of wiping him out. I could ignore the giants. I don't care. He's only worth 1 unit strength. I think at this point he might have said something about like how it's hopeless. And I was like, what are you talking about? Look how many points you've got on the side. He's like, no, it's unit strength. And look, I've got 3 unit strength left on the board because his horde's gone. And you've got, since they're nimble, large cav, they're 2. This regiment's 2. The mincer's 1. He's charged my little regiment of rabble there. But, I mean, he'll be hindered and stuff, so yeah. Overall, he was in pretty bad position at this point. And after he said this, like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I guess I'm in a good position. Yeah, so I mean, even if he kills the rabble, and this is like a caster or something of his, so. And I don't think he even killed the rabble at this point. And we just started moving around and shooting at things. So it was another strong victory. Ended up 6 unit strength of mine in his objective, or his deployment zone, and 2 of his and mine. So, and again, pretty good attrition. I mean, if we go back and look, these guys are 200. He's 130. He's 80. So we're talking just over 400, 540. 600 something in my individuals, and we'd killed the demon lord over here, so he's got 1 demon lord, a giant, and 2 characters. So, yeah, not bad. I think we did okay on attrition on that one. So it was kind of fortunate. During the break, I had walked around and took pictures of some of the armies, and I happened to take a picture of my next opponent. So it was ogres. He had a horde of shooters, 2 regiments of boomers. What's his name? Grakagamok's finest braves, and Grakamok over here. 2. Actually, no, that's not. These are Grakagamok's braves, and this is some whatever the caster character is, I believe. 2 hordes of regular warriors, a legion of warriors, a horde of siege breakers, and the giant in the back. So, looking at this army, I was not. I thought I would have difficulty with it. They're tough, and they're very killy. So I figured, again, if he kind of deploys tight and just advances into the middle of the board, and depending on the terrain, which the terrain was actually kind of favorable for him, I thought he'd have a pretty good shot at shutting me down and making it a tough game for me. And, of course, the scenario is, was it not control, but whatever you have to be within dominate, you have to be within 12 inches of the center. So it's forcing me into a melee fight with a tough melee-oriented army. With 2 wins, while still a little relaxed and still not super focused on being hyper, I don't want to say competitive, but I was trying to stay cool. I was like, look, I'm just playing. I'm still testing this army out. I was a little more focused though, so I didn't take very many pictures. A, because I was a little more focused on winning, and B, because I thought this would be a very tough army for me. So this is well advanced into the game, but I'll orient you to kind of how things were going. You can see this little coin here is marking the center of the table, so the goal is to be within 12 inches of that. A couple of hills, actually several hills, building here and a building just on the edge over here. What I ended up, well, let's talk about his deployment first. So he put his shooters up on this hill, which gave them, decent visibility and range. And then the rest of his army was pretty much central. But you can see he had his siege breakers and the finest braves way back here. And then just like a horde, a legion, a horde, giant was in the middle here. And then the boomers were kind of across the front. I went pretty heavy in the center to lower left corner over here. And I had 1 or 2 of my faster units on the right, because I thought, you can see there's a horde here. If he advances this horde forward, I had this large horde of mine behind this building, along with the king and the sniffs. So I was like, I can put some shots on these guys with my 2 ranged units, and if he deploys these guys too far forward, I can charge in and take these guys out, and then turn around and get the flank. If he keeps these guys back, because he wants to guard the shooters, I can just keep my horde back behind this building and kind of wait. My 1 horde and then his 2 hordes out of the game, I'm coming out ahead. And then the rest on my side, I rushed up some of my faster little regiments of riders up and around. You can see my little mobile flag bearers up there. And one of my mincers plots along as well, trying to just keep these guys scared and keep them back away from the objective, which worked. It took a turn or 2, but they stayed there to meet me. And then I just sacrificed my units charging in. I put some wounds on the finest braves because they were closest, so I kind of focused on them. And the rest of my force came up here in a little semicircle and just kind of waited outside the edge. And he kind of waited back here too. His boomers came up. I sacrificed my blasters and took them out. And with a lucky blast, I ended up killing his giant as well. And then for several turns, we just kind of stood looking at each other. And for me, that was fine. Even though I think I went first, I figured if push comes to shove and he wants to stay back here on turn top of 6 or whatever, I can just rush everything within 12 inches. And these guys are all too far away. He has a legion and maybe he had a horde over here. That's fine. I'll still outscore him and I'll win. He got very frustrated towards the end. I think he had a headache, and it was a little more stressful day than he had been planning. So he got kind of frustrated as, I just kind of moved around and shot, and then it's like, hey, your turn. He was expecting me to rush into the middle and just so he could paste me. So, yeah, towards the end, this is me just running some, I think there's my sniffs actually, just running into this horde to stop them from getting into the middle. Sacrificing a couple units, because all it's about unit strength. You can see stuff's moving in now. That's my giant still alive. And his legion's turning, but it's fine. If his legion wants to charge into my giant, which is 1 victory point, and he may kill, or if he wants to destroy my mob beast pack, which is worth 2, I've still got. The king might have been out, but this regiment's worth 2. Giant, regiment, plenty of points in the middle. He ended up he killed that sniff unit, of course. So then the horde charges in. Then Grogger moves up, so if they do kill the horde, they can't get too far and overrun and get to the center. They killed both my giant and the maw beasts, but again, I can just swarm the middle with a lot more. And with shooting what was left, I killed his finest braves, and his siege breakers are back here. Even if the game had gone on, they would have had to charge twice to get through, and I blocked them, I think, with the second character. I don't remember exactly how it worked, but in the end, all he had within scoring was this legion versus all my stuff here. So it was another good victory for me, at least primary objective-wise. Going back and looking, I think, well, it may not have been so good for me on attrition. Siege breakers, a legion, a horde, and a horde of shooters versus some of my trash down here. His character is back here too, so I don't have the official score sheet. I don't remember what my attrition was. I guesstimated a slight loss, but going back and looking, I may have had some stuff there. Regardless, so this was the final results. On battle points, I was second, actually. Just 1 point behind this guy with dwarves. So that wasn't too bad. And actually, if you look, the final game, 15. So it was my lowest scoring game, and my first one was the highest scoring. So whether it was attrition or bonus objectives or something, I probably didn't do quite as well that last game. And then this last thing, I think, must be soft score of some sort. I think it was a combination of, there was a quiz, paint scores, and sportsmanship. So actually, with a 37 overall, if you look at the other soft scores, 34, 28, 36.33, I don't know how they estimated that, but ultimately, I did pretty well. But my overall score, because I didn't do so well on painting, I don't think, although I'm trying to go through here now, maybe it was based just off battle points, because they gave an award for, I thought they gave one for overall, which I didn't get, which was fair, because I didn't have it painted well. They gave one for, I thought, top general with the highest battle points, which I was 1 point behind on. So I was kind of thinking, well, crap, I wasn't going to get the counter charge in the middle, so I figured I wouldn't get anything, but lo and behold, I ended up getting the sportsmanship award, which, I don't think of myself as a bad sportsman or anything, but I'm kind of a hardcore introvert. I'm not really chatty, but I'm super friendly with my opponents. I'm super friendly with the people who I'm there with. I don't remember their names, and I don't normally, seek people out afterwards to chat between rounds. I just kind of so whatever the case was, maybe it was because the fact that I wasn't feeling super pressured. I was just there playing and testing stuff out. Whatever happened to be, I'll take it. My opponents seem to enjoy my games, so I'm happy about that. I won't say more importantly, but more importantly, moving on to the actual objective of my game, what were the lessons learned? I did enjoy playing this army. Obviously, it's very, my goblin horde army is a mental challenge, and it's kind of fun because you're always losing. I mean, your units just don't kill very much, so you're always on the back foot, and you're thinking, how can I how can I salvage a win out of this? What shenanigans can I pull to stall his units, sacrifice my stuff, and get an objective and pull out the win? In this case, I was actually killing things and putting my opponent on the back foot. I had the initiative, I had the tempo, and I was dictating and putting my opponent in those difficult decisions. I don't know if overall my first two opponents certainly didn't seem to think it was frustrating. It was difficult for them. Obviously, I mean I won, but it didn't seem frustrating. I mean, if you, especially in the early games of Kings of War, if you're up against that like elven shooty army from hell, and you just can't go anywhere, you're just gonna get shot down to pieces. That's an unfun, frustrating game. My first two opponents didn't feel that way. My third opponent seemed frustrated, but again, he had a pretty bad headache from the first two games, so he was not in top form, and I think he just expected me to just rush into the center and slug it out with his ogres. And I wasn't doing a lot of shooting or anything. I was just sitting outside the center waiting for him to advance, and he was waiting for me to advance. And it was not what he was expecting. And he got kind of frustrated because I think he thought he had given me good charges to go in on, and then he would countercharge, and I was not interested. Obviously, the army is effective, at least in these games. And it's effective in all the different, or most of the different kind of needs of an army. I can focus strength and kill tough units. I have enough shooting to whittle away chaff and weak units or wounded units. I have mobility, so I can score and move around the board. I have some cheap throwaway units like the rabble that can be roadblocks or can hold objectives or take tokens, whatever. So we've got everything I need. The blasters, as you saw in that second game, are a little tricky to use. And we didn't talk, because again, I didn't show many pictures from the third game. They were okay in the third game with that horde of shooters and the fact that they're height 3. I really couldn't expose them too much because they were just going to get destroyed. So I had to sacrifice them early, blowing up the boomers. But, that's fine. So if there's any kind of shooting nearby, you have to be very careful with them. And in fact, I'm kind of wondering if I should try to fit the healing charm in. And I don't know. Between the mincers and the blasters, just a few points of healing every turn would be great, because they add up a couple wounds here and there from incidental shooting, which would be nice to be able to heal off. Pretty much every game, Grogger's reroll came in at least once, maybe twice. And again, the big players are the Chariot Horde and the King, because with the Maw Beast, or the Vicious, whatever it's called, the formation Voracious Maw Pack, they lose Yellow Belly, which is pretty handy. But yeah, every round, every game, I think that came in play at least once, and made it worth it. The Chariot Horde, I'm mixed on. It's been effective, but it's expensive. Again, at least for me. Again, I know a lot of people who take a regiment of, what are they called, the vampires on horses and stuff. I mean, there's a lot of expensive units out there that people don't blink at taking. But for me, a unit is 210 points because of the nimble upgrade. It's a lot of points, and is it worth it? I mean, I could scrounge up some points here and there, maybe drop the Maw Beast pack from a regiment to a troop, and then I might have enough points instead of the Chariot Horde. I get another regiment of riders and another regiment of sniffs. We're getting close, maybe. So I'd have a mobile shooty and a mobile melee unit as opposed to one unit that does both. Yeah, I mean, it worked. None of the games, I'm thinking going back, I don't see them here, so they must have gotten nuked I think they probably got shot by these guys pretty early on. So against the ogres, they didn't do too much. This game, all they did was shoot this game, but their presence and the fact that they could charge something put a lot of pressure on my opponent not to fly his monstrous creatures over here, like his demons, until the very end. So Ultimately, they didn't contribute a lot of wounds to the fight, but their charged threat range helped control part of the board, and I think they ended up getting into the objective because they're nimble and mobile, so they could get up into the opponent's half and score some points, which is good. And in this first game, they did a pretty good job because they were enough punch along with this regiment of riders here to take out the trolls, and because they're a little tougher, their nerves like 1 or 2 points better than their riders, they were able to survive the counter punch from this giant after they picked up the token. So, I mean, they worked out, but again, it is a lot. I wonder if I could get the same basic effectiveness or more from a different method. And I don't think I would take 2 chariot hordes, because if you take a second one, you can't make them nimble. And if they're not nimble, they can't move and shoot. Well, they can, but then they're hitting on 6s. So then you might as well just have the regular cavalry, because they're not going to be shooting very effectively. In this army, I could see where maybe a shooty army or something might want a chariot horde to sit back and shoot, and then if the enemy approaches, can charge. But this particular army is all about moving to avoid the enemy's strengths, and then combo charge the enemy on certain places to alpha strike and keep the enemy on the back foot. So you have to be able to move. So if you're going to have somebody who can melee and shoot, if you have to be nimble to make the shooting part effective, you might as well keep the nimble. So overall, worked very well. I was happy with it, and I don't think... Maybe with a few tweaks, the goal was to bring this to Adepticon. Spoiler alert. I suck at painting, and I didn't get it done in time, so I ended up not taking it to Adepticon, unfortunately, which was disappointing, especially after a good run like this. But there's other tournaments it's ready for now, so we'll see how that goes. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed it, and yeah, think about it. If you face this army, and it's horrible digital format here, what would you think? What would your thoughts be? Would you think of this army as cheesy or cheap or frustrating to play against? Would you deploy tight or spread out? Just kind of curious.